think you will all agree that having basic counseling techniques offers protective factors that benefit our students. Among the benefits include improved well-being of students, enhanced academic performance, stronger teacher-student relationships, and a positive school climate. It can also contribute to a more holistic approach to education, focusing not only on academic achievement, but also on the social and emotional development of students. Hi, my name is Bianca Reyes, and welcome to another QC Teachers Tayo webinar. Our speaker for today is Dr. Malu Chavez. Dr. Malu is a registered guidance counselor, a licensed psychologist, and an expert in the field of positive psychology. What are basic counseling techniques appropriate for our students? Let's find out.
Hello, I'm Dr. Malu Chavez. Greetings of emotional wellness. Our session today, which I will take care of, is about basic counseling skills for teachers, administrators, and staff. So good counseling skills are not only valuable in a professional sense, but most importantly, it is something that provides children, our students, with the skills and methods necessary to manage their emotions and navigate stressful situations. It also can promote higher levels of self-esteem. It can improve self-confidence and social skills, and it works to ease the transition between stages of life. And then some of you may be asking, why this session? Why basic counseling skills? Should this be the task that guidance counselors should be doing? Well, studies have proven that the best approach to students' mental health is a whole school community approach, wherein everybody is involved, not only the guidance counselors, but also the teachers, administrators, and staff. So when everybody works together, managing mental health among our students would be better approach. Also, if you come to think about it, as teachers, we are the first ones who can really observe when students have problems. We are also the first ones that students approach when they have problems. And most of us have no training about handling students' issues. And that's why this basic counseling skills is given today as one of your sessions, so that you will be able to learn from it. There's just a disclaimer that I would like to mention here, which is very important, because we often hear people calling themselves counselors. But please remember, you cannot call yourselves counselors unless you have the license of a guidance counselor from PRC. So what are we doing now? Why are we going into basic counseling? Well, it is just to really learn about the skills that we can actually learn about and then apply in the classroom or individually with the students assigned to us. So we do not have to call ourselves counselors to do that. We can be facilitators. We can call ourselves emotional carers, whatever you want to call yourselves. Just don't call yourself counselor if you do not have the license, because that's against the law also. Okay, so I just want that to be clear, because I am a licensed counselor and I have my license at stake if I will be encouraging you to call yourselves counselors after this because of this session. So no, that's what that's not what we are trying to do here. Okay, we are just trying to learn about basic counseling skills that we can apply in our professional work, especially with our students. And obviously, it's understandable we will not create experts after this 45-minute session, but you will be better equipped to handle a number of students' issues after this. Okay. And effective use of these skills can facilitate better relationships with our students, which is the first step of really working together to resolve an issue or a problem, or our colleagues, better relationships, even in our very own family, with our very own family members. All right. So, with that introduction and clarification, I would like now to share my slides. Okay, so this is basic counseling skills for teachers, staff, and administrators. It's an approach to handling school children and adolescents more effectively. There are different approaches of helping. We have direct action, teaching, training, providing information, insight, and counseling. Helping others should be a natural extension of every responsibility that we have as teachers, staffs, and the school staff and administrators. Unfortunately, it doesn't come as easy as you would think. As school personnel, we often get too caught up in work or our own problems, right? And not give the best attention to students for the help they need. Um, don't get me wrong. I am referring to appropriate attention to students. Okay. One of the easiest ways to help others is to act directly, just like a first aid to a critical situation. What could you do at that moment when help was needed? Like, for instance, if an incident of cutting, you know what I mean, or self-harming, attempts of suicide. And this happened in school. You do not bring the student to the guidance office and do counseling. The direct act needed is to bring the student to the clinic and apply first aid, of course, or bring the student to the nearest hospital emergency room. Then you have teaching, which comes when the client could not think clearly because she is being clouded by the issues that she or he is facing. You already know that based on our experience as adults, that when we have problems, we cannot really think of solutions clearly. And therefore, our students are also the same. More so because they are minors or they are still very young and could not think of options. And as counselors, as helping professionals, our role is to clearly show them options and to teach them in the process. And then you have training when additional skills are needed to manage their problems, providing insights or information when student clients need clarification or could not see the broader options for solutions to issues. And then finally, we apply counseling when students are having difficulty functioning because of their issues and concerns. When I refer to functioning, I mean like being absent in class, uh, underachieving, a student who used to be very active in clubs and organizations and not anymore participating. You can observe that right away, especially as teachers and as teachers who always see our students every day. So you could see the difference. The goal is really to make them functional again. Okay, and there are many more, but these are the basics that you should at least know for now. So let us first understand what is counseling. Contrary to what many people think, the role of a counselor is not to give advice. Again, it's not to give advice. Instead, counselors help you question the way you look at things, the way you behave or act to situations or people. And they can also help you to develop new strategies for dealing with your situation. They do this by getting to know you, developing an understanding of your circumstances, listening to what you have to say, and by offering support and insight. Therefore, counseling is helping people solve their own problems through providing encouragement and support. It is phenomenological. Rather than assuming we know clients' feelings and thoughts, In other words, we strive to understand their subjective world. Okay. Why do we need to learn about counseling skills? Many times we are unable to think of both the aspects of problems and thus unable to tackle them. Counseling skills, therefore, will help us understand others' points and think over them. During the session with the student, the counselor must listen, not judge, pay attention, validate, accept the client's feelings, the student's feelings. And not just say, kulang ka lang sa dasal. Kawawa ka naman. Walang nagtuturo kasi nga hiwalay ang magulang. Those are what's running in your thoughts. Focus on the student and her concerns by asking questions and knowing how to summarize. Okay? Let the student know that you care. The student will feel safe if they think and they feel that you respect their feelings, you understand their feelings, and then teach them to have the courage to develop the ability to stop, breathe, think, then move. Their session with you is a means of stopping within the problems that they are facing. So you allow them or give them the venue to stop first. Okay, let's stop first. Just breathe first, inhale, exhale, and then try to let the client come down and then talk about the problem. And after talking about the problem and you trying to process it, then show the ways of how the client can move forward from there. Not to react to problems, but to respond to them in the most mature manner. Okay. Before we proceed, though, let us go over the few mistaken assumptions about our role as teachers and who are also taking the role of counselors to our students. So first of the mistaken assumption, counselors listen to people's problems and then give them sound advice. So you already learned earlier that counselors don't give advice. They guide you or the students instead towards the solution to their problems by allowing your student clients to talk about it, explore, process, list down options together. Okay. The more questions we ask, the more information we will obtain. Sometimes, when you ask too many questions, the student will keep quiet and refuse to open up. And then positive thinking is the same as rational thinking. You need to believe in yourself. Positive thinking has to do with feelings and emotions. Trying to change bad emotion into good or trying to not let yourself feel upset. Meanwhile, rational thinking does not have much to do with emotion. When thinking rationally, you are trying to solve a problem. Okay, agreement and sympathy are the same as empathy. Empathy is really trying to enter into the experiencing of the other. Okay, it's trying to enter, and that is what we want the counselors to be able to have that empathetic presence, being able to feel, to be in the shoes of the other. Okay. The basics of counseling are that it really helps to talk to someone we know and trust. We are more comfortable confiding to an objective someone removed from your personal situations, who is not part of our personal situation, thus ensuring that that someone will not be biased when processing our concerns. Also, setting time in a safe space to talk will help us work through our issues. Okay. The aims of counseling is to provide emotional security and comfort, promotes insight, generate self-awareness, such as showing our student clients what strengths they possess, the values that they hold important to them, or just exploring talents and abilities, things that can be helpful for thriving and flourishing. And most importantly, facilitate confidence in our clients, student clients. It's good to take note that counseling is a both-way process. While the counselor takes the lead during the session, it should also facilitate the individual, the student, to explore his or her own world, find the best suitable way out for his or her difficulties, and become a better balanced individual in terms of overall well-being. Now let us go to the counselor, you as a person and as a professional, because we cannot separate these two from the counseling process. What we are will always affect our sessions with the students. Remember, our aim is to be objective persons where our students can ask help from. We have to be aware of ourselves always, our thoughts, what is running in our thoughts while the session is going on, behavior or actions, and what we release during sessions with our students. All these will make or break them. And the effect may not be seen right away, but it will be there forever. Here are some questions that you can ask yourself before a counseling session. Why are you choosing to help this person? With what issues are you uncomfortable? With what emotions are you uncomfortable? How will you handle students' feelings toward you? This is called transference in counseling. How will you handle your feelings toward them? Countertransference, as we refer to in counseling. Can you be accepting, flexible, gentle? What amount of progress is acceptable to you? So these are questions that you should be able to answer. And if you are comfortable with the answers that you have given, then go ahead and proceed with your session. Be honest. If the answers will not make you an objective person or professional, always refer the student to someone who can. Why? Because an effective counselor is first and foremost a model of mature ways of handling things. She or he is authentic and therapeutic. More than the techniques and approaches in counseling, you are the most important tool. Of course, as I have mentioned earlier, you cannot become experts by just listening to my 45-minute session with you. You have to learn to sharpen the saw through trainings and workshops. And of course, experience, practice all of these skills every day. Experience is the key. Since you are the main tool in the counseling process, stay alive. It's a prerequisite. Take care of yourself. Know what causes you to experience burnout. Know how to recognize and remedy burnout. What may help you may not be the same as what helps others. So discover your own unique way of helping yourself. Know how to prevent it. Know how to prevent burnout. You can never empower a client if you yourself looks like you also need counseling. Make sure you present yourself well. Dress up for a session, groom yourself well, and be a picture of a solution rather than a problem. Let us now go to the basic counseling strategies or skills. These are details that you are already doing. See, if you go over them, they're familiar, right? Okay, but let us just level off what they mean within a counseling process. First on the list, you have listen. Listen patiently and empathetically. I already mentioned about empathy earlier. So that is very important. Patience and empathy, the ability to understand the view of another person. This is where silence on your end is powerful. where you let the student talk more and you talk less. Okay? Try to enter into the experiencing of the client as she confides in you. Yes. So what can you say for the client to proceed? You can say, yes, go on. Please continue. Are words that you could say. Okay? To encourage more stories, more sharing from the student. Encourage the student to talk more. Speak briefly, use of silence, and provide succinct summaries and minimal encouragers. You can say, for instance, tell me more about it. What is it like to feel unmotivated? So you are asking the client to explain more about what she or he meant when she said, I'm so unmotivated. Wala akong motivation, ma'am eh. Ayoko nang mag-aral. Ayokong gawin ang assignment. These are common statements from students. Lack of motivation. So, what is it like to feel unmotivated? Let the student describe it. Or what were those times when the experience was not this heavy? Can you share it with me? And then listen more. Then briefly paraphrase and clarify. When we paraphrase or clarify, remember that this is what we think the client had said. And we want to check if we understood it right. By doing this, you are also putting order to what the real issue really is, thereby conveying empathy, acceptance, genuineness, and that you are willing to be corrected if the summary that you have given is inaccurate. So let's say, example, teacher Joanne is seeing a student named Chloe. Chloe has been speaking for 20 minutes. She said she is depressed, failing in school, concerned about her boyfriend's dedication to her or loyalty, and overwhelmed by parents' demands. Here is what a succinct, tentative summary would sound like. Okay? So you would tell the client now, you came in today because you are feeling depressed. Correct, right? Because she shared about the feelings that she's depressed. Your schoolwork is not going well. You worry your boyfriend doesn't love you. You are also unhappy with the amount of stress your parents are putting on you to get A's. Would you say this is accurate? So this is how you try to check. You paraphrase, clarify, and then allow to be corrected in the process. The next one is to reflect students' feelings and meaning. Okay? So you could actually say, for instance, like for the example that I gave out earlier, what is it like to feel unmotivated? So you now focus on the feelings. Explore more about the feelings. Let the student talk more about the feelings. And then you ask open-ended questions. What does open-ended questions mean? These are questions that are not answerable by a yes or a no. So with this, you will encourage the student to talk more, right? So were there times when the experience is not this heavy? So then the student would answer you in a sharing and storytelling way. No, ma'am, sir, meron namang panahon na hindi din ganito kabigat. So, when were those times when you didn't feel that it was this heavy? Okay? So, that's how you question. Questions that would make students talk more. And then you have to focus on feelings. So, what was that like for you? So, if she says an information, then if there's an opportunity for you to ask and focus on feelings, do that. What was that like for you? And for practice, you can actually do this when you talk with your colleagues so that you can practice already the skills before you apply them to the students. Okay? And then utilize student metaphors. When you say para kang binuhusan ng tubig, what exactly did you mean? Okay? Be that support for the student client, but also next, gently challenge irrational thoughts such as always, musts, shoulds. I should always take care of everything. I must do this every day so that I maintain my good boy image, good girl image. I should be at the top of the class. Should. So how do you challenge that? So you say, do you have to be? Should you be top of the class all the time? Should you always take care of everything? Must you do this every day to maintain your good boy or good girl image? That's just a way of challenging irrational thoughts. Because in psychology and in counseling, it's considered irrational thoughts if you always use always, you must, you shoulds. And you know, it has been proven already in studies that shoulds and musts are what affects mental health. Because if you cannot do it, then you get affected emotionally. And in time, it's going to affect you in terms of mental health. And then use self-disclosure appropriately. Never force a student to share information when she is not ready to do so. So what are you going to say? Okay, go ahead. Please share only what you are comfortable sharing about at this time. So you can say that. The more you say that, and the more the student client gets comfortable with you and feeling that she can trust you, she is respected, and you really care for her or him, she will be able to open up in time. But as long as she is not ready, please do not force the student to share about something that she is not ready about to share. And finally, when in doubt or you feel that this case is beyond you and your capabilities, refer. Do not hesitate to refer the student to other professionals. Okay? Let us go back to listening. Listening actually involves hearing and understanding. And understanding involves what is told by the student, how it is told or untold. While in session, what was happening to you as the counselor at the time? So, okay, what were you thinking about? What were you feeling as a counselor while talking with your student? And of course, when we listen, we are also required to respond. Okay? And there are different ways of responding. So before I go into the Soler, when you respond, it also involves the attending skills. So how do you respond? Through your body, through your posture, through your eyes and attitude. So you sit squarely, open posture. Please do not fold your arms in front of yourself. Have an relaxed posture in front of the student. Lean forward so that she will also see that you are interested to listen. Eye contact, but don't um, stare for so long where eye contact is concerned because the student might feel uncomfortable. So this is just comfortable eye contact and then have a relaxed attitude. And of course, um, other types of responding would be to evaluate. This is looking into the good or bad, what is appropriate, what can we possibly do here with this kind of problem that is being shared. So you can discuss that together with the students. That is attending skills because you are trying to also respond in a way that you are trying to evaluate the situation and then try to infer a meaning behind the problem statement. So you do interpretative statements as well. And then you give supportive statements, being reassuring and calming. And then probing when you need to really clarify and seek further information and understand, confirming with the student that counselor, you as counselor, understood the message correctly. So supportive, probing, understanding. So these are attending skills as well, aside from the Soler. The pattern of sessions generally has a predictable rhythm with starting from the introduction. This is also trying to establish rapport, making the client comfortable. But of course, if you are the teacher, having a good relationship to begin with in the classroom would be very helpful. And then you have information gathering, um, the part where you apply the basic counseling skills of listening, asking questions, probing, processing, and so on. And then discussion, exploring options. So evaluation, exploring options, listing down possible actions to solve the problem. And then conclusion or closure of the current session. Usually we give skills enhancing assignments for clients. They do this while they are not seeing you, and then you discuss about it in the next session. It is good to have notes of each session kept by the counselor in a confidential folder. So please take note of your session with the student so that it would be easy to review the details of the case as well as the assigned tasks for the client student to gain skills in handling their problems. So you will be able to discuss about it in the next session, and the student would feel good when you as counselor is able to remember the last session. That means you were really listening. Okay, and making them feel good would encourage them further to listen to you as well. Okay, when looking into a case, ask yourself, what themes in client's life merit special attention? So this is how you're going to handle now the session with the student. After the student shared a lot of things with you, remember the paraphrasing that we had a while ago? There were a lot of issues that were discussed there. But you try to focus on a certain theme, one session at a time, so that it can be attended to more appropriately. What themes in client's life merit special attention? What techniques and methods would best meet these goals? What characterizes the relationship between you and your client? Okay? What themes in client's life merit special attention? Because you will discover really that there will be plenty expressed during the session. What techniques and methods would best meet these goals? You will also discover that there is no such thing as one technique or method fits all. What will work with others may not work with this current case. What characterizes the relationship? Will you be a facilitator who will be actively listening? Will you be a mentor, expert who will gently challenge irrational thoughts? Just be clear about your role so that you will not confuse the student more. So how might you proceed? That is the question. Okay? This is how we should be. A teacher is one who makes himself progressively unnecessary, by Thomas Caruthers. We cannot let our students be dependent on us. So it would be fulfilling for us as teacher counselors, as teachers who will be able to assist, help our students manage their problems in a mature way when they become independent themselves in doing this and managing their problems, and they're not dependent on us. Please be with me, then let me try. So this is what we will try when we do counseling with our students. First, we journey with them, and then eventually we have to let them do things on their own. We can only gauge success if our student clients have learned to be independent and again, functioning maturely in society, in school, and in the community. Now give me the chance to move ahead by myself. Thank you. I hope I have been of help to you, and hopefully you were able to get some tips from the slides, and that you will be more comfortable now and confident in handling students who will approach you in your role as teachers, as advisors in the classroom, as homeroom guidance, teachers and staff as well. Okay, so thank you so much for giving this opportunity to me to be with you today. Thank you and God bless.
Teachers can develop their counseling skills through various methods. This include training and workshops, continuing education, self-reflection, role-playing, and seeking support from a community of like-minded allies. All these create a safe space or a supportive classroom environment where students feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and feelings. We look forward to hearing your own views on this topic through a self-assessment that will be emailed to you shortly. A certificate of participation will be sent to you once we receive your reply to this self-assessment. Miriam College stands with QC teachers in promoting peace, positivity, and productivity in the lives of our students. After all, QC teachers tayong lahat.